Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. The British prospect Joyce has finally confirmed that he is split with David Haye. Joyce moved to a new trainer, Abel Sanchez, in July, which meant training in California. And then in August, he signed up with US boxing power broker and advisor Al Heyman, who is of course behind Premier Boxing Champions. He's got a big stable in the United States. And at the time, the big question obviously was, well, where does this leave David Haye, who as Joyce's promoter under the Haymaker Ringstar joint venture with Richard Schaefer, took the Olympic silver medalist pro in October 2017. So basing himself in the United States, being with Heyman, it didn't really appear to leave much room for Haye. And it hasn't. So Joyce, he's now confirmed Haye is out of the picture with a post on Instagram. It reads, "I have been getting a lot of messages over the last couple of months regarding my promotional situation and wanted to clarify a few things. I can confirm I have parted ways with Haymaker Promotions. We have parted on great terms, and I remain good friends with David and everyone involved at Haymaker. I have to do what is best for me and my career, and with Richard Schaefer promoting me, Abel Sanchez training me, and my management S-Jam advising me with Al Heyman, I have the best team to help me reach my targets in 2019, 2020 and onwards. I want to thank David and all involved in the Haymaker team for everything they did for me in the first year of my professional career, and I wish them all the best for the future. Hashtag the Juggernaut." So that was Joyce's statement on Instagram. And this all must have been timed and agreed with David Haye, as the Haymaker Boxing website, which previously was full of all sorts of Joyce-related photos, information, all that sort of normal promotional stuff, that's been completely stripped of anything Joyce-related, see on screen. And it's got a little bit on Derek Chisora now, a little bit on Haye, but effectively it's just a front page that you can scroll down. So it appears, the only fighter on David Haye's books, at least in a public-facing sense, is Derek Chisora, who Haye recently teamed up with in October. And actually, we have no idea what sort of arrangement and for how long that will be in place. And knowing Derek Chisora, he won't have nailed his feet to the floor for very long. But in regards to Haye promoting any other fighters, if he is, drop me a comment. But that Haymaker Boxing website, it certainly is a bit thinner than it once was, just the one scroll down page. But in terms of Joyce confirming this all now, the timing is interesting. He effectively cut the cord a few months ago and didn't really sort of say anything then, and he's made some other moves, so perhaps he was just waiting on his contract with Haye to actually run out before he could comment publicly. And that would certainly make sense, but who knows, there could well be other factors that we aren't privy to. But certainly the writing was on the wall as far back as August, well, maybe even July, when he signed with Abel Sanchez to train him, and then obviously in August for Al Heyman. At that point, Haye looked like he had become surplus to requirement. And as we know, Joyce, Olympic silver medalist from Rio 2016, he is a man in a hurry. He wants to take a shortcut in the heavyweight division, get the contender level fights, and get to a title as soon as possible, a title shot that is. And under Haye, it became clear that even after the fast start, they managed to get him a good opening fight, Lenroy Thomas in his fourth fight. At times, David Haye, he was struggling to get meaningful opponents for Joyce, not the sort of stuff that Joyce was after. The Donny Palmer and Ivica Bakurin fights, they were late notice opponents. And I'm sure Haye, he would have tried his best for Joyce. I mean, he would have, but he just didn't have enough clout. He didn't have the sort of backing seemingly to get the fights and hit the mark every time on the opponent front. But certainly getting the Lenroy Thomas fight, that was a coup. But beyond that, I can understand why Joyce and his management, S-Jam Boxing, which is run by Sam Jones, I can understand why they have opted for greener pastures. And clearly they thought the United States offered them what they were after. Exactly what level of influence Richard Schaefer will have over Joyce's career going forward, it's unclear. Is it going to be a big part, or is it more a nominal role, because Joyce, under United States law, has to have some separation between his promotional element and his management? And I'd note, Joyce did appear recently on a Schaefer show, that was September 30th, where he knocked out Iago Kaladze. His next fight is against Joe Hanks on December the 1st as part of the televised portion of the Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury pay-per-view. There's going to be a lot of eyeballs on that. It's going to be a bit of a showcase for Joe Joyce, not the opponent that he wanted, but there will be a lot of people that will be seeing Joe Joyce fight live, especially in America, for the first time. And that's going to potentially open some avenues for Joyce, but we'll have to see there. But as I said, the opponent, Joe Hanks, not the first choice, not who Joyce was going after. The Brit he was actively going after, former title challenger Gerald Washington. But the American, who was in the same PBC stable as Joyce, didn't want a bar of it, which ironically is the same sort of situation that Joyce had found himself under Haye. Not able to get into some of the fights that he wanted when he wanted. And Joyce is a man in a hurry. He's 33 years old now. He wants to make the most of his prime and get into some big contender level fights. And he contends that he can actually go far in the division, that he could actually fight for a title now. And sort of a part of the sort of problem for Joyce right now is obviously he's on paper, he's a 6-0 prospect, but really he's a contender masquerading as a prospect. Good amateur pedigree. He is ready. He's in his prime. He could be beating some of the contenders in the top 20 right now. I've no doubt about that. But it will be tough to get him some fights because a lot of fighters, depending on who they are, will just swerve him because of the level of danger that he poses, or that they will want to be overpaid to face him. And this isn't going to be a problem that can be completely solved by being with Al Heyman in that stable. We've just seen with the Washington example, nothing is guaranteed here. So it's going to be interesting to see what, if any, contender level fights can be made for Joyce in 2019, because right now he seemingly is high risk and potentially low reward. And that's not the equation a lot of fighters are willing to sort of take on. The Joe Hanks of the world, sure, because they're looking for a payday, probably getting paid okay compared to some of the other work that they can get. But beyond that, some of the guys, the top 20, top 30, they will certainly want their money to fight Joe Joyce. And his manager, Joyce's manager, that is Sam Jones, he recently stated that they're going after or targeting Luis Ortiz, Adam Kanowski, and Dominic Breazeale in 2019. I'm just not convinced any of those fights are really makeable at this point, just given where those fighters are at in their respective careers. And I covered that off in a video the other day. Effectively, my sort of take on it is those guys, where they are, they're all close to title shots. Breazeale, he's got the WBC mandatory position. Kanowski, he's about 1 or 2 fights away from a title shot in the WBC. And Luis Ortiz, he could get a rematch with Deontay Wilder if Wilder keeps winning. So until they know what's happening in terms of, whether they can get a title shot, they're probably not willing to take on a guy like Joyce for short money, and really what's it going to do for their careers? Because if they do beat Joyce, well, they beat a guy who was 6-0, 7-0, 8-0, whatever. But actually, Sam Jones, Joyce's manager, he has put out a poll asking who should Joe Joyce face next. That is, of course, if he gets past Joe Hanks. And the options, Gerald Washington, Adam Kanowski, Michael Hunter, and Marius Wach. And I voted for Michael Hunter, as Hunter himself, I think, would no doubt fancy his chances against Joyce, and he seems to be willing to take on a number of the top contenders right now, and if the money's decent, I'm sure he would be willing to take on Joe Joyce. Hunter, of course, very well schooled, a long amateur career, and of course he's been campaigning down at cruiserweight, but that hasn't stopped him making a little bit of noise at heavyweight of late. And I'm sure he would be employing a similar strategy to the one against that he used against Martin Bakole, which was high risk but ultimately high reward. And he walked away with a very good stoppage win over Bakole, who until that point was a highly touted prospect, a guy that was the favourite in that fight. So Michael Hunter really generated some noise for himself from that fight. So we could see a Joyce and Hunter fight potentially, but we'll have to see. In terms of Kanowski, not convinced, as I just said before. The Polish-American, 1 or 2 fights away from a title. I'm not sure he'd risk taking on Joyce right now. Gerald Washington, well, who knows? That's a big maybe. Probably depends on money, because if Washington loses, well, he's slipping down to sort of gatekeeper status. He hasn't had a good time in the last year or so, and if he takes another loss to a guy that's, 7-0 on paper, well, that's not really a good look. And the fact that Marius Wach, the last guy mentioned in the poll, the fact he's been mentioned at all, probably means that that fight can be made. Potentially some talks, or there's been some chatter already between the teams about potentially making a fight. And let's face it, Mariusz Wok, he's not what he once was. He's on the slide now. He's just taken an L to Artis Bilker in what was a largely forgettable fight. That fight didn't really catch fire until the 10th round, and Mariusz Wok, he was just fighting okay in that fight. I wouldn't actually be shocked if they made that fight for 2019. And Wok's name, on Joyce's record, it carries a bit of weight. Wok is a former title challenger. He's durable. He's only got the 4 losses on his record. So who would you like to see? What do you think is realistic? Because I still think that Joe Joyce is going to have to work through, some of the sort of fringe contenders potentially before he really gets to a top name. I'm not sure, even though they want to jump him straight into a big fight, I'm just not sure that happens. Obviously, Haye was trying hard for that, couldn't do it. For this first fight in America, second fight in America on this big card, they were trying to make the Washington fight, couldn't do it. Are they just going to have to fight a couple more fringe guys first before they get to something better? And can that something better be in 2019? Let me know. And lastly, Sam Jones, he's also confident that his boy would beat Alexander Usyk at heavyweight if they fought again, if Usyk comes to heavyweight. So Usyk got the better of Joyce first time around. And Jones stated on his Twitter, "I believe wholeheartedly Joe would be too big and strong for him over 12 rounds. Yes." What do you make of those comments there? Who do you think Joe Joyce is going to fight? Obviously just left David Haye, or he's announced that he's left Haye. What do you make of that situation? And David Haye, he appears to have just a stable of 1 fighter. Well, it's hard to know if it's more than that because the website is pretty thin. Drop a comment, loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.